How did RAM work on 80s IBM PCs and Apple IIS? Imagine turning on your computer in the 1980s and seeing a blinking cursor waiting for commands. Behind the scenes, a lot was happening with the computer's memory to make that possible. Let's take a look at how RAM, or random access memory, worked in those classic machines. Starting with the Apple Roman II, which was one of the earliest popular personal computers. It used a processor called the MOS 6502, which could only address up to 64 kilobytes of memory. This meant the Apple II's RAM was limited to that size. Early models came with just 4 kilobytes of RAM, enough to run simple programs and games. Users could add more RAM chips, either 4 or 16 kilobytes each, to expand the memory up to 48 kilobytes. The way the Apple Roman II managed this was pretty clever. It used special wiring on the motherboard called strapping blocks to tell the system how much RAM was installed. The system then mapped the memory accordingly. The Apple Roman II also used software tricks to make the most of its limited RAM. For example, it timed memory access with the video display to avoid conflicts, which meant it could display graphics and run programs smoothly without extra hardware. Later models like the Apple IE made RAM expansion even easier, with a standard 64 kilobytes and options to add up to 128 kilobytes with expansion cards. This allowed for more complex software, better graphics, and more multitasking. Now, let's look at the IBM personal computer, which came out in 1981. It used an Intel 8088 processor, which had a 20-bit address bus. This meant it could theoretically access up to 1 megabyte of memory, but early models started with just 64 kilobytes or 256 kilobytes of RAM. The RAM was installed directly on the motherboard and could be expanded using memory cards inserted into the ESA slots. The IBM PC's architecture was more modular than the Apple Roman II. It had chips like the Intel 80-37 direct memory access controller and the Intel 80-53 timer, which helped manage memory refresh cycles and data transfers without burdening the processor. The memory was organized into segments, which made managing larger amounts of RAM more complex. The system reserved parts of the memory for the BIOS, video memory, and hardware, so the actual available RAM for programs was less than what was installed. This modular design allowed users to upgrade their RAM easily and add peripherals, making the IBM PC adaptable for business use and software development. From a nostalgic view, the Apple II's RAM setup showed how clever hardware and software could stretch limited resources. Hobbyists loved to add more RAM to run better games and programs. The IBM PC's approach marked the start of a more open and expandable computer system, setting the stage for the personal computers that would dominate the market. Upgrading RAM in both systems was a common task, whether to improve game performance on the Apple Roman II or to run more advanced software on the IBM PC. Understanding how RAM worked in these machines helps us see how early personal computers balanced hardware limits with creative solutions, shaping the tech we enjoy today.